you are a very brave person for this topic.
Yeah. Where do you think Singapore stands today when it comes to racial harmony?
Racial harmony is a work in progress. Differences will always exist. And if it's not the old difference, it's a new difference. It's important to have the conversations on race. All these are different options for youth to participate and get their views heard.
It's a lot of voices. So race is a topic that always seems to be in the background, but recently it's been making more headlines, and whether it's because of the new policies like Maintenance of Racial Harmony Act or racial issues surfacing in the news. But what does racism actually look like in Singapore, and how do we navigate difficult conversations around it? To help us unpack these issues, we have here with us today panel speaker on race, grassroots advisor and member of parliament, Nadia Samdin. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
Welcome.
Hello.
You are a very brave person for this topic.
Yeah.
My tissue under the mask.
So before we dive into the topic, I actually wanted to ask a few personal questions, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I found out that you were the first person in your family to go to university.
Yes.
And I was really
Yes.
curious to find out, like, was there an added pressure for you to do well because of that? Or was it just something that kind of like came into place?
I don't think my parents put pressure on me. I mean, growing up, my dad was sole breadwinner. And my mom stayed at home to look after us. I have a younger brother. My dad worked for the longest time in the airlines, Mr. Aviation, for 30-something years until SARS. So, I mean, SARS was, I think we are similar-ish generation, was the COVID of back then, of our time. So it was a very difficult period. But because of that, I really managed to finish school because of different bursaries that I received and things like that. And there was a point in time where, don't even say uni, where I think it was A-levels, and I was looking at the expenses you have to pay for exams, right? The irony of it all. You have to pay to take the exams. And I thought, I don't know if I can afford to take this extra paper.
Right.
Was there added pressure? It was like, okay, because I managed to sit for the paper, because, through the grace of others and bursaries, I managed to sit for it. I think there was this sense of, then you better do it justice lah. I don't know about per se, because I think that's relative. Everyone has their own sense of what they want to achieve, but I wanted to do it justice lah.
Yeah.
So
give it your best.
Give it my best, yeah.
Before I begin talking about racism, because I think, that was about the questions that we had. I did want to get your opinion on where do you think Singapore stands today when it comes to racial harmony?
You guys should tell me what you think about that.
I mean, to set maybe why I asked as well was because I think if you really take a step back and you look at Singapore, there's at least not an obvious high level of tension amongst races. It feels like there is a good level of racial harmony. It doesn't feel like there's a bubble that's about to burst where there'll be racial riots, not like in the past, right? So it feels like there is a good level of racial harmony, but I can't seem to, if you ask me to make it tangible, I don't know what that looks like.
Because we can't. Because we are part of the majority, at least in race relations. So I think if we feel like it's nothing, it doesn't mean it's nothing. I think that's why we're uncomfortable with an answer. Roger.
Hi. Well spotted. My main interaction with the rest of the country is online. I think that applies to a lot of people. And what I see online is not always a picture of harmony. So I'm like, is this representative of what actually people feel when they see me on the street? Or are these people online, a very small minority of people who feel like this?
For example, you're looking at a lot of racist comments towards the Indian community on the internet and you feel like, okay,
I'm like, if I was in front of this person, would they say something like this to me?
Right.
And is this person someone I know, someone I see on the road every day when I go to work, Right. So, and some of the situations that I see this in are, they're quite heart-wrenching because there's some, there was a kid who went missing. He was 6 or 7 years old. And the police put out a notice if you see this guy, please, let us know, this little kid. And the first comment I saw was, is this kid a Singaporean Indian? Or is he, not Singaporean Indian? If he's not, I won't bother. Or if he's Singaporean, I will help. And I'm like, okay, you can have your issues with, other races, but a kid?
Yeah.
That's something you would say to a small kid. Right. What would you say to a grown up guy like me if you think I'm not I don't pass your criteria?
If you go missing,
I go missing touch wood. But that is a very one thing that happened that stuck with me. When I look at that, I don't know if that's the picture of harmony.
Yeah. So for me, I think that if you think about the word harmony, right? I think that harmony is not the absence of differences, but it's what prevails in spite of it. And I think the natural order of things is truthfully that we are very different and we are very diverse because we've had different backgrounds, different upbringing, the way we go to school, sometimes the language we speak at home, what we saw on TV and all, etc. is very different. The other thing that I think, Jonathan alluded to earlier is that, Singapore is a country where you have a big majority and a small minority. Right. And in other parts of the world where there's similar racial dynamics, a lot of times, honestly, the minority is truly crushed.
Right.
Or the minority does not have much of a say or representation at the table on an equal level with the majority. I think that's just factually what the racial demographics make up.
I think where I struggle with racial conversations in Singapore is that, like, when we benchmark racism today versus in the past, right, especially when the older generation speak out on how society is getting a lot more sensitive, right? They would say, last time we all just together, there's a lot of races in our friends clique, and we'll call the Indian guy a Keleng Kiang, right? Sorry, pardon me for saying that, which I know not acceptable today, right? So in the past, that's acceptable. And at least in where these circles of stories are heard, right, it's also spoken of by an Indian person, And so what are we benchmarking when we talk about racial sensitivity in conversation today? Is that where we want to go back to, where we know that it's just a funny thing to call each other, that person did not take offense and they call you back a Chinese slur? Do we, because at that point of time, you don't need to think so much when you speak. You just speak like how you want to speak.
Knowing that there's no ill intent, like it's just a term in...
And no one's like trying to take offense.
Right.
But now not saying that people...
Or give offense. I mean, more than not trying to take offense,
Correct, because you only know that for yourself, ma. You only know that you're not giving offense yourself. But what you cannot control is that how people will take offense. But once again, I'm part of the majority, so I don't know what it's like to be a minority in a country. I don't know how much it hurts. When I'm called a Ching, for example, like, it does not bother me. But if I move to America and live in America and called Ching, will it bother me? Maybe, but I don't know yet, you see. Yeah.
And I think just on that point about, past versus present, right? And going back to that point that Daniel was saying earlier about where is racial harmony today, I think the thing is that, racial harmony is a work in progress. I don't think anyone anywhere can ever say that, we've all got it sorted, because differences will always exist. And if it's not the old difference, it's a new difference. And someone will find something else to pick on and something else to learn, because communities also evolve over time. Other things that evolve over time is our standards. I think in terms of what is acceptable in the past may not be what's acceptable now. There's new things which emerge online. We see, we replicate, or we feel a certain way about it. We adopt or we reject. I think that it may be, to some, it may feel that it has regressed in a certain way. But if you look at it statistically, or, at the various surveys as to how people feel about it, at mass, I think people generally say that we have it better today than in the past. It's important to have the conversations on race. And you can only have conversations if people are willing to listen, rather than if you just want to be heard.
Okay.
Let's say you hate cleaning your room. So your mother comes and say, please clean your room. And then you just don't do it. Your mother say, please clean your room. You're not going to do it. And your mother say, please clean your room. You probably don't feel any more motivated to do it. You just do it because I just want to stop shouting at me. And for something like race, you can't shout someone into understanding. You can't shout someone into moving past whatever worldview they had because of whatever context they may have grown up in.
Right.
You need to have that. Someone needs to be brave enough and confident enough that if I ask a question, people are not going to immediately label me something or say that I'm insensitive, etc. But I want to ask because I want to understand. And for the person asking the question, you also have to be sincere about why you're asking and what's your intention. So is it complicated? Yes.
Which I guess is my problem with cancel culture, or almost wokeism to some extent. Like I think there are some values that maybe the far left bring onto the table, or maybe the younger generation bring to the table. But when it comes to cancel culture, I think it's almost like we're creating a safe space, but a safe space that we define for ourselves. And so it's almost like we don't create any teachable moments, because when you cancel somebody because they said something that you have taken offense in, you don't allow them to have that conversation and explain like, oh, I did not understand or I did not know that was actually offensive or racist. You immediately submit them into the nether regions of like the the negative zone. And I feel like there needs to be better ways to do it, which I feel like we haven't quite figured out yet. I think for a long time, whenever there was something that was racist in the news or whatnot, immediately cancel culture brigade decides that this person is no longer acceptable in society.
So like for example, when you brought up that as we progress, we should have higher standards. I agree with you, right? So I think where I'm confused at is what is higher standards? Who sets higher standards? Because it feels like if we are following where cancel culture is going or wokeism is going, it feels like there are more and more things that we just cannot say. There are more and more things that we are just forced to accept even though we may not personally agree with things.
Or who sets the standards? Because is it always going to be the youngest adult in the room? Because it seems like we're always going that way.
Interesting.
Does it not seem like, okay, I think great, we're always pushing for progress in some way, but is that the way we set standards? Because I mean, I don't think I find anything wrong with that. It's just how do we then update everybody else who is between 18 to or 19 to 109 on what the new standards are? I think that's where it's very difficult to kind of bring people to the table and say certain things we can't say anymore, or certain forms of casual racism that maybe was acceptable in the 50s or 60s. I don't know, maybe suddenly are not okay anymore.
But see, a few months ago, right, you might be cancelled by saying that women cannot participate in men's sports. And then now you can. And now I'm saying here we don't have to censor it. You see, we see the pushback of cancel culture, we see the regression of cancel culture. Then to me, you feel like, hey, this is progress, right?
Is it though?
Exactly. So then for people of
right
cancel
backlash.
culture, it then feels like there is not progress.
It's a right lash
Okay.
because of how progressive like the world had been leading up to
Right.
at least last year.
Yeah.
And then how much backlash from the right
Yeah.
that pushed back against all the progressive ideals.
Yeah.
And framing it in a way like, oh, they're just making sure I can't say stuff, which
Yeah.
I don't think was ever the intention
Right.
of not cancel culture. I personally, my hot take is that cancel culture isn't really a thing. Nobody ever really gets cancelled.
Plus, I also think that things have changed maybe over the last 4 or 5 years, like where I think the right has realized that, hey, actually we do have a platform. It's just somewhere away. Cancel culture did feel very real maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
I feel like it was in my maybe teenage or adult years, right, that I learned the actual meaning or the derivative of these negative
The
terms.
slurs,
The
Okay,
slurs,
yeah.
Because like it was literally what my grandmother called them. You know what I mean? Then they just call them. Then in a normal conversation, it's just that one, that guy, and we are not no harm, no nothing. It's just we saw that one with that person there. You know, so it's okay. That's we're just communicating, right? And then later in life, then we slowly learn. Oh shit. Like that's where the words come from.
And the thing is, even if someone didn't know what it means, right, then I guess the question goes back. I mean, it's not anything about your grandma, okay? But it is who is the onus on, right?
Yeah.
In terms of to understand what it means. I mean, could it be that
Exactly.
is it on the minority say, hey, actually this is what it means, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, one possibility because the majority has no idea what it means.
Yeah.
Or is it on the majority person using it, for example, to be like, actually, what does this, what am I saying?
Yeah.
So I think it's also where does the onus lie in terms of sort of...
No, I think which comes back to like the point that you were making, which is how do we have conversations about this and who really starts it? Because like if a 7-year-old is saying it, do we wait for him to be 15 to realize? Because usually that's when you become a little bit more socially aware, and for you to go home and go, guys, family meeting, like this is not okay.
It's no law or no kind of policy is going to hard code this out of someone. A lot of it is societal, cultural, etc., and a lot of it begins at home. Is there a right age? I don't think so, but maybe you can sort of nuance how you teach it, right? It's about recognizing, okay, let's say maybe you talk first about stereotypes, right? Okay, all people like this are XYZ. But why is that not good, for example? Why do we not use stereotypes? Because then you don't see the person as a person. You recognize individual attributes, what this person is like. Let's not call people names, for example. I think there's age-appropriate ways to talk about many things, from your own rights to race to women empowerment, etc.
Okay.
It's not an excuse, I think, for someone being too young.
The question here is that, I think the younger generation often gets associated with being more socially aware, but my question is, are they really, or are they just coding racism differently? The fact that we're still referring to race, we're just saying it differently.
I think there's a difference between things being racial and racist.
Okay.
If someone says like, that Malay woman MP, I'm I take pride in that. I'm okay, you know. And I think for many people, even the younger generation, I do think culture is having a resurgence in certain pockets where you feel a lot more willing to participate in your culture in different ways, right? It could be in attire, you know, it's for example, the kebaya is making a resurgence. You see Malays wearing the kebaya.
Is that cultural appropriation?
For example.
Or is that okay?
I am happy if people want to learn about my culture. You know, I think, well, if I saw someone wearing a kebaya with like hot shorts.
Yeah, so wear it properly lah. Wear it.
You respectfully.
Yeah, wear it respectfully. Although, you know, maybe they also don't know and they don't think about it, right? But okay, anyway, I think there is a difference between being racial and racist. And if you embrace your own culture, you're willing to be known for it, you're willing to share with people about it, I think that's good, no?
I do feel like I agree with you on this point, but to a certain extent, I also feel like it's easy to get called out on saying something racial as opposed to racist also.
I agree, which is really what I want to be able to have a dipstick test on, because I think we've been called out before when we say like, oh, that Malay person did this to the Chinese person, or the Chinese person did this to the Indian person. And there are people that come out and say, why do you have to say they're racist?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, because they're both guys, they're both around their 20s, like there's no other descriptor to use.
No, there are also times whereby, let's say I would say, the guy with the glasses.
Yeah.
If it's a Chinese guy.
Yeah.
But then I would say, the Malay MP.
Right.
Yeah. But how come I don't say the MP in blue shirt? You know what I mean? Yeah.
I see it as one of our many labels as part of our identity. And I do think increasingly young people with intersectionality, etc., you do recognize that actually a person is so much more than just
their race.
Yeah. I don't know.
Correct.
I mean...
but in purpose of conversation, will that then feel weird to you? For me, at least, when I speak, I just want to use as little words as possible to get my point across.
Yeah.
Right? Especially in a
I think
conversation.
context matters, right? It's very hard to say that blanket, this is okay, blanket, this is not okay.
There's nuance.
I think there's nuance. So
and you also don't speak for everyone and represent your race.
Yeah,
Of course.
so I think like if there are two people side by side and it's like, oh, the Malay guy or the Indian guy, or, you know, if I was next to the other Malay MP, it's like, you know, which Malay MP? I think context matters. So if it's a situation where it's the easiest thing to
Identifying
call
people
out.
lah,
It's identify. It's one of our many identifiers.
Yeah.
And race as an identifier, I think a lot of people do want to hold on to, as much as we move towards Singaporean first identities. People identify as being Singaporean first. I do think a lot of people take pride in being, you know, Singaporean Malay or Singaporean Chinese or Singaporean Indian, Singaporean Eurasian.
My follow-up question to this is, do you feel like the younger generation is better in a sense whereby we need to keep up this momentum of education such that when the older generation that don't want to learn really, right, because maybe they reach a certain age or they don't consume the media where education is platformed, that when they age out, that Singapore can perhaps drop CMIO and integration has taken place. You know what I mean? Like,
I think, firstly, I think we tend to forget that Singapore is only 60 years old. And I really mean only 60 years old.
Yeah.
Because, you know, people like to use the analogy of mudflats to metropolis. In the way we have progressed, because we've come to this metropolis level, compared to countries which have had hundreds, thousands of years of history, there was a lot of battles. I mean, if you go and look at history, there's been a lot of battles, give and take, say the wrong thing, people fight over it, clash, and then, you know, huge things happen. We have not really had that time to be able to have that
Fight
discourse.
finish,
To fight finish.
Yeah.
No, I really do think so. And that's why even though it may feel that, oh, you know, we should have it all together, we should be here, sometimes it feels like we're not. And I think that's where sometimes there's this disconnect. Like, actually you say racially harmonious, but are we actually not really there?
right.
What I do think is that the younger generation is more willing to talk about things. I think in the past, you know, a lot of people might say, you know, live and let live. Don't say lah, very sensy, better not to talk about it. I think young people are willing to sort of kind of plant a stick in the ground and say, actually, no, I'm not really cool with this. What do you think? And have that discourse. How young people have that discourse is then a different question, right? Because conversation can either be constructive or destructive. But there are many different kinds of conversations you can have. It's just, what do you want to see more of in order to have that common ground?
As like a question to the both of you, right? As fairly young.
Both between
Do
early
you not
to
feel
mid
like
30s,
if you all
right?
speak out, right, because by virtue of being minority, right, it's very easy for society to label you as troublemakers. Like everything's okay. Why you want to take offense in this? Why you want to find problem?
Yeah, label is sensitive.
I've definitely even heard this directed at myself when I say something.
Right.
Like at an older workplace, we would have a weekly meeting, we would talk, and then suddenly they would start talking in Mandarin.
Oh,
Right? We are obviously in a group of like there's Malay, me, myself, some Malay folk and Chinese folk.
Yeah.
We are doing a work briefing, and then you suddenly delve into Mandarin. I didn't know what to do. So I started just walking out of the room. So I'd be like, I thought we're done with the meeting already. I thought you're all personal talking.
Right.
So after I did that once, they were like, okay, no anymore.
so I think we've spoken about instances in which racism occurs, and I think racism still occurs in Singapore. So how do we call it out, right? Because I think it's very tricky. If you're too soft, no one listens. If you're too loud, people push back and get defensive. You get even louder or even more extreme, you may have problems with the law. So how then do we call it out and stem it?
At the end of the day, the question is, what do you hope to achieve out of this interaction or this conversation? And depending on how frustrated you may be, you may have a different objective, right? On one hand, sometimes maybe you just want to say, it was really not cool and you're done with it.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you may not be able to respond in that moment. You just have no idea what to say. But maybe you reflect on it and then you come back to it saying like, okay, look, I really want to tell you how it made me feel. And maybe you can only leave it at that. Another level could be, okay, look, these are all the reasons why it's not okay. I hope that you can do it this way later on in the future.
Right.
And I think, so number one, it depends on where you're at. And I think it's important to recognize how you're feeling about it. And then you can sort of maybe walk away from the conversation for a while and then come back to it depending on how you feel. And then the second part is, what do you hope to achieve out of it? I mean, are you just trying to make a point, which some people may be, or are you trying to bridge the gap? And that's, I think, where we hope that most of the conversations will end up. That what you're trying to do is to enlarge the common ground. You're trying to focus on the relationship and then trying to bridge the difference.
So I also found out in my research, of course, that you've been involved with the Future Youth Movement as part of the PA Youth Movement, right? And I think from what I've read, racial harmony is one of the core pillars. In your involvement of that, something that was very, very mind-blowing to me was that they collected 120,000 youth voices to collectively come together and agree on particular statements, one of which is under the racial harmony pillar. What were some examples or submissions or stories you've heard that maybe inspired you about the future?
I think where SG60, we've come a long way. We talked about it, but at the same time, we still are a very young country with a lot more to go. And part of the kind of whole government exercise is Forward SG. And Future Youth Movement is a parallel track in an effort to engage young people. So it collected over 120,000 voices.
It's a lot of voices.
Over 200 engagements, some online, some in person, and really it's collaboration with different groups. So I think even though it's from the government, it's a national sort of movement, the intention was really to collaborate with different ground-up groups where there may be different segments of youth from different backgrounds who want to lend their voice to this endeavor.
Right.
And the intention there is to give people a platform, a safe space, as one of the many options that there are. I also want to really acknowledge that it's not just these national government platforms which exist to talk about race. I think there's a lot of ground-up groups who do really great work. Sometimes it's online on social media like we talked about, and sometimes it's in closed doors. But all these are different options for youth to participate and get their views heard.
So what does that look like? We talk about participation, right? Like, I think it has to be more sustained than just, one-offs or like going for a particular event. Like, what does a sustained participation look like so that youths are getting that racial and religious harmony going?
I think what we hope, of course, is, sign up, join, be part of the youth movement. And you can do that in your own neighborhoods. For example, you can register your interest at the nearest CC. I think the thing about race is, it's like language, right? Or like, if you don't actively work on it, if you don't kind of pursue it on a day-to-day basis, it will probably you'll become more and more awkward or uncomfortable when talking about it. And so the Future Youth Movement collected all these voices. So if you want to find out more about the Future Youth Movement, follow our Instagram page.
Okay, which we will put it down below so it's easier for everyone to click into. The
One
point is to
committee.
go out lah and
The
meet your
point is
neighbors.
to meet people
Right.
of different backgrounds and participate actively, because that's really where you learn.
Right.
Yeah. Get out of your enclaves of having the same floor of just being in Chinese.
Yeah.
Don't just share posts and then be done with it.
Communicate, not comment, was part of your speech.
It's true.
Which I looked
You
up.
did your research.
Yeah, I did.
Thanks, Daniel.
I was finding a way to like integrate that inside.
And I should also say that I think beyond the existing activities, we really love it when people come forward with their own ideas of what they want to do.
Right.
So, for example, if you are keen on producing a short film, for example,
Right.
about race, that would be welcome. If you want to set up a rollerblading club, you
Yeah.
can do that too.
Right.
So no idea is too small,
Right.
and feel free to come forward and share it.
So this episode was done in collaboration with People's Association. As Nadia mentioned, about the future youth movement. We've put more information down below, but as a quick explainer, it's really the youth parallel to Forward SG, so that we can refresh the youth compact with the government and the changing aspirations of youth today. The Youth Network has been collaborating with partners and ground up groups on various initiatives, and the ground up initiatives led by Youth for Youth to envision a caring, inclusive and embracing society and chart the future of Singapore together. Like I mentioned, more information down below. Thank you so much, Nadia, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Woo! And we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.